any kind of plan B or backup or anything else, right? And also I'm a wrestler, right? I did some construction work, but outside of that, I don't have too many skills, right? I can pick up dumbbells and I can pick up people, but.
Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast. I'm Cameron Christiansen, along with our co-host Anthony Faso. We just wrapped up our interview with Barri Griffiths, who was a WWE wrestling star, and more recently has been the villain down on the Strip in Las Vegas, but throughout his career has now become a very successful real estate investor. And we had some really good content, and what we're actually going to do is we're going to break this up. So this is part one of our interview with Barri Griffiths. Anthony, what were some of your takeaways on this part one section?
Well, what I really liked about this one, this part one is more about his journey. Mm-hmm. And what he had what I thought was very interesting is he talks about his, like he made it. Like he had the dream of being in a WWE, and then, you know, that dream got stopped. Yeah. And he didn't have any income, and he just bought a house, and so now he had this overhead and no income. He had to reinvent himself. So then he got another great job working on the Las Vegas Strip in the show Ka. And then because of the pandemic, he got laid off again. Mm-hmm. But this time was different because this time he had passive income. So he shares about his journey mentally going through those similar obstacles, but the outcome the second time was much different. And probably one thing I really like that Barri pointed out, you know, he also has a great podcast, Wrestling with Real Estate. And Cameron, you were on it.
I was.
Early on.
I was.
And one of the questions he talks about was about what your wrestling name is. And also, but he made the comment that you would be more of a boy band than a professional wrestler. So then we started talking about, well, what band would you be in? NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, O-Town, or BTS. So what I'd like, I really want to know the answer to this question.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pose this. I'm going to do a poll on our Facebook page, Infinite Wealth Consultants. And I would love to hear from you. What boy band do you think Cameron would be in? But other than that, Cameron, what were some of your takeaways from today's podcast?
Wow. Thanks, Anthony.
My pleasure.
Yeah. The takeaway that I had on this first section was what jumped out to me was almost immediately what Barri had said was, man, he said that he was young and he was getting into, or he's living in England and or wherever he was, Wales, I think. But he said that he wanted more. And that jumped out at me because I think everybody wants more, right? But the difference that I saw with Barri was that he put action behind those feelings. And the theme that I had was really the first career that he had, the first opportunity that he had was the WWE career. And what he didn't talk about was the years of discipline that it took to get his body to the way that it needed to be to get that opportunity. And the same thing in real estate is he didn't talk about, he mainly just brushed over the time and effort that he put into going to RIAs and talking to people about real estate and trying to understand how these things work before investing. And so, you know, I wanted to make that connection. I thought it was a great point, putting action behind some of our feelings. So really, really good interview. I enjoyed it, and I know you guys will too.
Enjoy the episode.
Take care. We are excited to have you on our podcast. And one of the reasons I'm excited to have you on here is you've got a great story. And so you've got a great story, and along with it, you've got a tremendous amount of experience in real estate. And so we're going to get into that. But, man, if you wouldn't mind kind of introducing yourself briefly and then just kind of going back to how everything got started for you.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for having me. It's going to be fun. I'm excited to be on the show. You guys do an awesome job. I love your show. It's really cool. A little bit about me. I grew up in Wales in the UK, small, tiny little town. And always wanted sort of more. I realized early on, I don't know what it was. Wanted to get out of the town. I love my friends, love my family, love where I'm from. Beautiful place. But there's not that much opportunity and there's not that much chance to kind of be more to some extent, right? And I don't know what that looked like, to be honest with you, but I always remember that I wanted more. So was a sports person growing up, played any sports under the sun. Eventually got into weightlifting, created a physique for myself when I was just training all the time, eating all the time, and not doing anything else, super dedicated. So I decided, like, I'm acting like a professional athlete here. Let me do something with this. And I didn't want to be a bodybuilder or anything like that. And I saw wrestling on TV one day, and I was like, these big jacked up guys. I was like, I think I can do that. You know, I'm athletic. I have that. I was 6'6", 280 at the time. So I started looking for opportunities to wrestle. And a show happened to come through my town a couple of months later, and I went to that show, met with a promoter. We hit it off straight away, and he started me off in wrestling in the UK. Fast forward a couple of years, I was down in London. WWE were down in London. I went to the show there, met with them. They ended up signing me there and then, pretty much. They sent me the contract 3 weeks later, but agreed to sign me. And then, maybe 6 months later, I flew to Tampa, Florida, wrestled for WWE on TV. I was there in training for about a year, wrestled on TV for a couple of years. And then in 2014, they didn't renew my contract, which was a shock in itself. I'm sure we'll go into that. And then, luckily for me, a gig with Cirque Du Soleil kind of came up out of nowhere. And now I work for Cirque Du Soleil on the Strip at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, Nevada. So small town boy went from Florida to Las Vegas, Nevada. Yeah, it's been a crazy whirlwind journey.
Man, that's funny. You said you wanted more. I can remember when I realized that I wanted more. I grew up in a small town too, and I worked at UPS. And I remember sitting there working at UPS at 3:00 in the morning. And I remember one of the guys kind of leaned over and he's like, hey, man, he's like, you know what? In 20 years, that could be you. And he pointed over to a guy in a truck, right?
A guy in a truck with 2 knee braces and a back brace?
Exactly. And I look around and I came to this realization that every one of those drivers had blown out knees and a bad back. And I'm like, oh, man, nothing against UPS or that career. But I was just thinking, man, get me out of here. Like, there's got to be something more, right? So it's funny how you come to those realizations at certain moments in your life. And that's cool that you have an avenue to pursue. So when you were kind of in London, you said they signed you right there. Did you automatically just come straight over to the States immediately?
No, it was about 6 months because there's a ton of paperwork. So you have to get visas and, all that stuff lined up, right? You can't just come over here and work. So there's a lot of immigration stuff that needed to be sorted. And there was it seems like tons and tons of paperwork that I had to sign. And it's kind of a pain in the backside because where I live, a notary is like, here the dime a dozen, right? You can get a mobile notary to come to your house. But I remember it was around Christmas time when I needed it to sign. And in Wales, everyone takes 2 weeks off for Christmas. My wife she's American. She was blown away by this. Like everything shuts down for 2 weeks. You can't get anything done over Christmas for those 2 weeks over Christmas. And I needed to get it done. And I ended up having to drive like 2 hours to find a notary. And most notaries are attorneys. So you can imagine how cheap they are as well.
Yeah.
So it cost me like £200 for like 5 minutes of his time, which is like $300 or more of his time, just to sign a couple of signatures. But we got it. We ended up getting it done. But I remember being scared, like, I'm not going to get signed for the WWE because I can't get this notary anywhere. And everyone was sure. And, the WWE don't understand. They don't take no for an answer, right? Their thought process is you find a way. If you don't find a way, well, you're not the guy for us. So I was panicking. So yeah, I remember that vividly.
How exciting must that have been for you at that time, man? Did you, in your mind, were you thinking, man, I'd made it, right? This is it.
I don't know about made it because I knew there was a long way to go, but it was meant to. So as I said, I always wanted more, right? To move on. So to move over to the US, and I'm going back a few years when I was like 12 or 13, we came to the US 2 years in a row, and I loved it here. And I never thought for a second that I would be back living in the US. It's still nuts to me every now and again, but I remember, going to Disney World and all that stuff and just loving it, there was something about America that was just so cool to me at that time. So fast forward to when I'm moving over here to Tampa, Florida, I was just so excited, even just to come to the US. And of course there was that opportunity with WWE, but I was just so excited. So it was cool.
Okay. So and how many years were you with WWE?
4 and a bit years. It was about 4.25 years. Yeah.
Okay. 4 and a bit. And I don't know. Imagine that they paid you well, or at least compared to what you were earning in Wales.
Yeah.
Right?
I worked for my dad for when I worked construction before I got into wrestling, and I think he paid me £150 a week, which is, what is that, $225 a week. So yeah, I was rolling in it back then.
Yeah, Dad was sorry to see you go.
Here you are rolling. You've worked many years to try to get here, and then here you are, and then all of a sudden you're not. I mean, they don't renew the contract. Like, tell us how that felt.
Yeah, that was rough because I speak on it quite often. At that time, I didn't have any kind of plan B or backup or anything else, right? And also, I'm a wrestler, right? I did some construction work, but outside of that, I don't have too many skills, right? I can pick up dumbbells and I can pick up people, but for life, any kind of plan B or backup or anything else, right? And also, I'm a wrestler, right? I did some construction work, but outside of that, I don't have too many skills, right? I can pick up dumbbells and I didn't have any kind of backup investing. I did zero investing at the time. I had some money in the bank, but that's not making me anything. I'm losing money in inflation every year by having it in the bank. So when that hit, it was like an oh no moment, right? I don't want to swear, but people can kind of guess what I was thinking at that time. And I didn't really know what I was going to do. I had no real idea, no real direction, right? I was hoping I could somehow make it work with wrestling, but it was a really testing time. It was just like, my dream had come to an end. I didn't know what was next in my life. I was 32, I think, 32 or 33, not old, but not young, right? To be like, what am I going to do with my life? And it was just a huge moment for me. And it was just really tough. And, my plan A was to be the world heavyweight champion. My plan B was to be the world heavyweight champion. My plan C was to be the world heavyweight champion. And it was, it was a pretty scary time, to be honest with you, for me mentally and just from an outlook of life to kind of perspective.
Okay, so how did that change? So is that how you got into real estate, or?
Yeah. So real estate. Yeah, I bought the house. So interesting. In January of that year, I bought a really expensive house. So it was really expensive to me. It was $435,000. My first ever home purchase, right? So maybe it wasn't the smartest move in the world, but I thought it was going to be the world heavyweight champion. And it wasn't coming from a place of arrogance. I worked really hard. I had a trajectory at one point. I was kind of heading that way. I had people always kind of telling me that. Maybe I was stupid to listen to them, but there was a trajectory there that seemed like it would go that way. So buying a $435,000 house wasn't a big deal, right? Because I was going to buy $1 million home in a few years and so on. So I've got a $25.50 a month mortgage payment, right? Fine. I'm working for WWRE. I'm making good money. Bang, that comes to a halt, right? Where am I going to find $25.50 a month, right? That's a huge mortgage payment, right? For anyone, whoever's listening, I'm sure. So I was like, I don't want to sell this house because I love this house. And that's why I bought the house. It was a complete emotional, no investment whatsoever behind it, complete emotional buy. So I was like, I need to keep a hold of this because I've lost my job. I don't want to lose this house that I just bought, that I love, that I love waking up every morning. I love it, right? So I went down the rabbit hole trying to find a renter. How do you find a renter? How do you screen tenants? Brought me to Bigger Pockets. I think brought me to probably Rich Dad, Poor Dad, So opened that world of real estate investing. And I always say that when that happened, it was like, Neo from Matrix, when he finally gets it right at that first movie, right? Yeah. He's able to dodge bullets and everything just moves in slow motion. It was kind of like that. The whole world opened up to me. I was like, and I think, especially Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? It teaches you liabilities versus assets, right? And that was just, blew my mind. It's such a simple concept, but it's just brilliant. We're not taught that, right? But it's such a simple concept. So I realized that real estate investing was so brilliant because I could create that other stream of income for me. I could create that passive income for me that, could support me no matter what, right? I could go after entertainment and be in entertainment and, be a wrestler and travel the world and do this stuff, but I can invest in real estate and have that income come to my door. Or, they call it mailbox money, right? It's probably bank. They should call it bank money now because it's
go to the mail.
Deposit into your bank account. And, of course you have to you have to do some kind of stuff, but at the same time, I was blown away by that.
Okay, so you got into real estate, and then you got a job here at a Cirque show on the Las Vegas Strip, which I've heard great things about. I have not seen it. I've seen the stage, And I've seen behind the scenes with the tour, like it looks super cool. So, but unfortunately, nobody can see it right now. Oh, the shows are done. So here you are again. We've, before with WWE, we had a great job. Your career is on a great path. And then all of a sudden, there's an end to that road. So you recreate yourself. And now you're the lead villain in Ka. And then almost like the same thing happens. All with no notice, you are out of a job. So is this the same, very similar mental process that happened last time?
Yes and no. So initially there was kind of that, oh no, here we go again, because it kind of just brought back that feeling, right? And we didn't know. We always thought that we were going to come back, and it seems like we will. But at the same time, you don't know, right? So here I am. I've been loving working for Cirque Du Soleil. I hit rock bottom after WWE. It was really like scrambling to make money, scrambling to pay that mortgage payment, scrambling to figure things out, and just really hitting rock bottom. I think it was really a tough time. So I was like, part of me is like, am I gonna, I've got this job, the job security I thought with a 401k, health benefits, all that stuff. And am I going down that same road again? Am I going to be scrambling or whatever, right? But then quickly afterwards, I came really relaxed. So that feeling didn't last long at all. I think it was just PTSD from the previous thing that happened, right? It was just, yeah, because the first time was pretty traumatic, to be honest with you. But this time I had real estate to back me up, right? Thankfully, and I was so deep into real estate at that time, was obsessed, still am to this absolute day. I'm absolutely obsessed with real estate. From the second I wake up to the second I go to sleep, I'm thinking about real estate. I'm my wife and kids and family and everything in between. But in case they're listening. But I realized that I had to start off with. I had some income coming in from some of my real estate investments. Probably wasn't enough to sustain me long term, but it definitely helped. But more than anything, I had that knowledge and that ability to go after real estate, right? I understood what was there, and I had that option. So I was kind of like, okay, I'll take some time off. I can be with my son, all day and whatever, and I can focus. And also, actually, kind of excited me to some extent, right? And hopefully this doesn't sound bad because I know a lot of people are struggling, right? I know it's not great for a lot of people, so I'm not taking that lightly whatsoever, but it kind of excites me because I think, okay, now it might really force me to go after real estate even more and create that passive income even more. Now, I wasn't quite where I wanted to be, but I knew I could get there pretty soon if I needed to be. And that in itself was such a relief. It was, I don't know, I don't think the word Zen comes to mind almost. I was really relaxed about it, right? I knew I could create a life for myself through real estate, through creating passive investments. So it was life-changing, really, getting into real estate. That first, isn't it funny how adversity sends you down a certain route, right? Yeah. So that had that first time never happened, I may have never found real estate investing. I might still be, if I was still wrestling, would be spending every penny I have, not that I was a big spender, but still, unless you understand money and understand those concepts, it's okay to spend $5,000 on a flat screen TV. It's okay to buy a Tesla and spend, most of your money on that car payment. It's okay to do that, right? Because you don't understand, right? You're doing what everyone else is doing, and you're just living that life. You don't understand anything else. That's just what everyone's doing. That's what you think you should be doing. So it's just, it was just amazing, the difference. So I'm just so happy that I found that other avenue of creating passive income.
Awesome, man. Could you tell us a little bit about your real estate kind of trajectory, right? So you'd mentioned that when you moved here, you had a personal residence in Florida. What was the next step? When did you start, quote unquote, investing?
Yeah, so I moved here at the end of 2015, rented. I would have bought, if I went back, hindsight being 2020, I would have bought instead of rented. But I rented to start off with, and then in 2016, I bought my first real investment property. Even though I bought that other property, I told you it wasn't a good investment. So it was a townhome. Bought it for $173,000. Put about $8,000 or $9,000 into it. and then it was renting for $1,300, I think. So, people talk about the 1% rule. I don't know if you guys
talk
about the bigger pockets 1% rule. It didn't meet. It's where the rent is 1% of the purchase. 1 month of rent is what equals 1% of the purchase price. It didn't meet that, but it was still a good investment because I fixed it up, so there wasn't a lot of maintenance. So it was a foreclosure, fixed it up. So everything, new carpets, new flooring, new appliances, paint everywhere. So there wasn't much maintenance that was going to be needed. So the difference between, it's not always what your rent is and then what your mortgage is. The difference isn't always cash flow, right? There's some expenses in between. But I think my mortgage payment was $900. So there's $400 difference there. So give or take another 100 or two for this and that. I was making about $200 a month in cash flow, which is pretty good and pretty solid deal to start off with. And it was in a good area, got a great tenant in, so that kind of took care of that. So it was a really good first investment. It wasn't a home run, but it was a really solid investment to start off with. So then I bought a primary residence that was supposed to be a live-in flip, which it turned out to be great. I bought it for $230 and then sold it for $307 about 2 years later, so I could avoid the capital gains tax. I lived in it for 2 years. For people not aware, if you live in your primary residence for 2 plus years, so two of the last previous 5 years, you can avoid paying capital gains on the sale. So I did that, and then I also bought and I ended up selling everything to focus on multifamily because my goal was to get to 40 single-family homes. So they tell you, right, what is your goal? Yeah. What do you see your life looking like? What do you want that income to be? And then reverse engineer it. And it was 40 single-family homes for me, cash flowing $250 per property. Well, to buy 40 single-family homes, that's a lot of work, right? You know what I mean? It can be done, but it's not that scalable. So I realized that I can invest in apartment complexes and buy 40 units in one deal. So I then wanted to sell everything to focus on multifamily. So this year, January of this year, I bought a 6-unit in Cincinnati, Ohio, of all places. And that's doing great. I've been taking rents at some of them from $525 to $1,400. So it's nuts. It's nuts how much I've been able. I didn't expect it to be doing that initially, but it's just the area is great. The demand for rent is much higher than I thought it was, and I'm going to eventually sell that and walk away with a lot of equity, and then to do a 1031 into something much, much bigger, into probably 40 or 50 units. So that's where I'm going now. And I'm also focusing on syndication. So we had a 99 unit that we made an offer on in the last few weeks that we're going to be pursuing as a syndication group.
So a couple of comments. For one, so Cameron can understand, a 1031 is called a 1031 exchange, where you can take the profits from property one, roll them into property two. So basically you are deferring the capital gains to the next property. You got that, Cam?
I got it.
But Barry, the question is, so you live in Las Vegas, but you have an apartment complex in Ohio. How did you find it? How did you find it initially? And share with how it was owning a property that you can't drive, that you can't easily drive to.
Yeah. So what happened with me was I wanted to buy multifamily, but multifamily in Vegas is tough. And you can do it. You can buy in every market. I'm not using that as an excuse, right? There's people buying multifamily in Vegas being successful. There's people buying multifamily in Los Angeles and being successful, right? So I'm not saying that, but it just made more sense. It made more sense for me to find more of a stable market that had higher returns, because I also didn't like the boom or bust of the Vegas economy, right? When it's booming, it's great, but when it's busting, it's not so great. So I wanted something, because I was obviously looking long-term, a long-term outlook in terms of my investing. So I came across Cincinnati, Ohio, made sense. Flew out there to get to know the market initially before actually buying it. Flew out there a couple of times, made some great relationships out there. And then decided to go full pelt and try and buy there. So came close on a few properties, made quite a few offers, and then in the end, one day a broker calls me up and says, "Hey, this is a great deal. You should act on it today or tomorrow. We need to make an offer on this, otherwise it's going to be gone." And it was this 6 units. He explained it to me, so I said there and then, I said, "Hey, let's make an offer right now, because it's better to make an offer and have to pull out for whatever reason, right? And you don't want to be that guy that's pulling out of tons of deal. But if you think it's a great deal, it's better to act and then figure it out later rather than wait. So Cincinnati is a solid market. It's a lot more stable. It doesn't go up and down. There is some growth there, but not as large as cities like Las Vegas. There's some population growth. There's some job growth. There's good job diversity. They've got 7 out of the 500 Fortune 500 companies there. So there's a lot of good stuff happening there. So then I think you asked, right, how did I do it, or how was my comfort level without having to be able to touch it, right? So I think people, my opinion, right, and maybe I'm just wired a little different, I don't know. People get caught up in that, I need to go see it, right? And that's good because you can go up there and check on contractors and see what's happening. But also it can be bad, I think, right? Because if you need to always go to your property, and if you always need to be checking up on people, and you don't figure out other systems and procedures to do that, right? You're always going to be involved in that property, and it's going to be hard for you to scale, right? If you want to do multiple deals and you want to really grow your business or whatever, right? You're going to be bogged down by always having to go there. Hey, I've got to go there this week. Hey, I've got to go there today. Hey, I've got to do this, right? And also, right, technology is an amazing thing these days, right? You've got camera phones, you've got Zoom, you've got, you can take brilliant pictures, right? So there's you can be, it's almost like you're there sometimes if you FaceTime with people. So how I did it was I built a great team. So if you're going to invest, I would say my advice would be to build a great team. And it really is so important to build a great team. You want good pieces of that puzzle because they can then be your eyes and ears and on the ground there, right? They can be your boots to the ground, right? You don't have to go there, right? As long as you've got good people connecting with you, they can go to that property, right? Just like you would, right? And it doesn't take any of your time. That's great, right? So it's, you want a good agent. If you're buying residential, you want a good real estate agent to start off with. I think that's what my suggestion is. That's how I did it. You find that first person that is a rock star, and then you build your team out, because rock stars know rock stars. So if you find that first piece of the puzzle, you can then ask for recommendations, ask for referrals, go to the next one. And you always want to vet them. That's a whole different subject that we could talk about another time, how to kind of vet these people and how to grow that. But, build out your team. You get an agent, you get a property manager, you find contractors, you find lenders, you can build out your whole team. And these people want you to succeed if you find the right guys, because it benefits them to succeed as well, So it really isn't nowhere near as scary as people make out. And I think it's a mental thing for a lot of people. And if people can get over that mental hurdle of realizing that, find good people, and it's even better because they even have expertise more than you do, right? So they can even use those expertise to look at the property even better than you. If you never invest in real estate, you go look at a property, you kind of know what you're looking at, but you send a property manager, an agent, a contractor, they've done this for years. They look at thousands of properties a year. So you can use that experience as well. So it's almost better in a way. Plus you've learned that skill then of building that team, that you're creating that time freedom for yourself as well, so that you can go do other stuff. And what is your time best spent as well, right? That's another point that doesn't always get bred up. Is your time spent going to the property, knocking down walls yourself, or like arguing with a contractor, or like checking up on the contractor? Or are you better off finding more deals, right? Where is the money at, right? You try and figure out what is your time best spent as well. But it can be done for sure. It's not that scary.
Barry, I like your comment, rock stars, no rock stars. That was cool. So how do you, like you mentioned the first one is finding a rock star realtor. How do you find out the rock star from the cover band guy?
You were looking at Cameron for that?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I wasn't, but
you'd have to be the boy band, surely, right?
Yeah, with this baby face for sure.
The boy band, okay, I can see
Backstreet Boys or something like that.
What was it?
NSYNC or Backstreet Boys?
I think he might be more of an O-Town guy. But
I remember them.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm. I don't want to go into why I know about O-Town, but that's a whole nother. That's a whole nother story. In order to find out if your realtor is more like a rock star or a cover band, you're going to have to tune in to part 2 of our interview with Barry. Now, I'm asking you for some help. towards the end of here, we alluded to one of Cameron's dream jobs, which is to be in a boy band. Now, don't tell him this, but I think that ship has sailed. But what I'd love to know is what you think, what boy band would Cameron best fit in with? So what we've done, and when I mean we, I mean what I've done, is created a poll on our Infinite Wealth Facebook page. And I would love to hear your input on what boy band best fits Cameron. The link to that is in the show notes. And also, I'd recommend you check that out and like it. And that way we'll keep you up to date on every time we post some content. Now go make it a fantastic day.